Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. It was on October the 4th, 2025, when the curse was finally broken. For the first time in a long while, Tottenham Hotspur fans can finally feel happy during an international break. For somehow we know Spurs contrived to lose, 7 in a row in terms of pre-international break matches. Finally, it's over. We can have an international break where we're like, oh, Spurs are quite fun, rather than just wallowing in misery in an international break about how they're rubbish. Even Thomas Frank admitted that he told his players to win just so he didn't have to answer questions about it in the media afterwards, and this bizarre streak that had gone on. Now, though, the streak is as dead as Randall Kolo Muani's leg once was. It's good. It's fine now. It's all good now. It's all good. He's just getting a bit fitter now so that he can play. I would imagine after international break, that'll be 2 weeks of fitness work for him to get back into things. A windswept, wet day. The last kind of bits of Storm Amy were in the air, and Spurs got the job done. They did, and I managed to make my train home. Thank you very much to the Tottenham Hotspur fans, various ones dotted along the way that saw me sprinting because I got an Uber from the ground that I had to ditch it because the traffic was so rubbish in Leeds. So they would have seen me running across Leeds to try and make this train back that I needed to get on. And so thank you for geeing me up. It was like being in the marathon all again and having Spurs fans along the way keeping me going. Although this time I was in full work regalia and very hot and sweaty. Well, I was hot and sweaty in the marathon as well. Thing that's a little bit different, just caught my own eye, I forgot I'd put it there. Normally when we come away from the game, that's the lanyard that we wear around our necks. Normally they take them back, and I think because I came out of a different way of Ellen Road, they completely forgot to take it. So I thought, well, I'll stick it there because it marks the occasion of the end of the pre-international horrible streak. Do you know what? I thought today was a really good performance in terms of a professional away day, battling in the wind and rain. It's the kind of lunchtime kickoff we have seen Spurs spluttering and losing in so many times over the years. But they showed a bit of grit, they showed a bit of character. It's worth noting that Leeds have not lost in the league at Ellen Road for more than a year. And I know they've been in the Championship for part of that, but it just shows you how solid their defence is and how well they play at home in front of their own crowd. I think it's something to be proud of Spurs. We've seen so many Spurs teams crumble, and they did not today. It was just classic old-fashioned game where you're going to have to just fight, and they did. I do think they had some key players back in the team that helped them do that. We'll talk about those as this goes on. It was kind of a game of firsts and almost firsts, I guess. You had former Spurs man Joe Rodon almost scored his first goal against his old side. Early on, he had a header from a deep free kick, which Vicario, I think he was just going on holiday. I don't know where he was going, but he was nowhere near the ball. Rodon heads the ball. I think I might have some quotes later that say this, but Thomas Frank kind of felt it wasn't as dangerous as it looked. It was more of a heading against the outside of the post kind of chance. I still feel it's pretty dangerous if there's a man at the back post able to do that. Then, obviously, Spurs opened the score in 23 minutes. If you're not aware, Rodrigo Bentancur, fresh from his new contract, which we told you was going to happen. I think, what did I write the piece on Tuesday? It was the day of the Boda game. I said he's close to agreeing that new deal. Lo and behold, it was done on Friday, which was great. He won the ball in midfield. Real good strength, actually. I'm putting a lot of alliteration together I'm struggling with. Good show of strength. And won the ball, plays it off to Kudus. Kudus plays it perfectly into the path of Matisse Tell, starting up front. And he ran on and did the old Jermaine Defoe thing. Hit an early shot and it catches people out. And lo and behold, it did. Got a bit of quite a fair nick and deflects past the goalkeeper, Carl Darlow. So first goal of the season for Matisse Tell, and a much needed one as well. Kudus wasted very good chance when I think it was a dog who broke down the left, played it across, and he skied it over the bar. And Leeds punished his profligacy. 34 minutes in, a kind of a deflected shot from Brendan Aronson through a crowd of bodies. Vicario kind of managed to shove it slightly to the side, and Destiny Doggy not quite as aware as Noah Okafor, and he runs in and boots the ball into the net. What else do we have? We had Tell sending a looping header onto the crossbar just before half-time from Wilson Odebear's cross. Then Spurs retook the lead on the hour mark. Lovely bit of kind of anticipation from Kudus. There's a ball from Porro down the right, hits the back of the defender. Kudus absolutely leaps onto it, runs inside, and hits a low shot that deflects into the bottom corner, but I kind of felt the deflection only took the pace off it. I think it was flying in there regardless. Excuse me. And then both sides had chances in the second half. It went close. Both flashed balls across the 6-yard box. But ultimately, it came down to Vicario, because Vicario made a good save with his foot from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And then right at the end, he made a terrific flying save with his hand from Joel Pirou in the final moments, final stages, I guess. Made sure Spurs went home with all 3 points, and a much needed 3 points, because for them to hold on, funny little stat for you, in that final 15 minutes or so, they are the only team in the Premier League to have not conceded a goal in the final 15 minutes of a match, of a league match. Funny little thing there, which I guess shows all those blocking sessions they do, and character and spirit and mentality, I guess, to keep the ball out of your net, which, let's be honest, it's been something that's been a bit lacking from Spurs for a while. And lo and behold, we got to the end of the day, 3rd place in the Premier League, 1 point off Liverpool in second, wasn't it? 2 points off Arsenal on top. So then probably. And the joint 2nd best goal difference in the Premier League. They've lost, obviously, just a single game so far in the league, the miserable game to Bournemouth, if we're not going to count the UEFA Super Cup, which technically they lost on penalties rather in the actual game. And Thomas Frank said after the match, extremely happy with the win. I think if you want to build any successful team, you need mentality and character and cohesion and togetherness. No matter if you play like Inter or Barcelona or whatever style of play, you need that willingness to do everything to win. I think we're building that more and more in the team. Let's say in the last 10 to 15 minutes, when they pushed us back, we also dropped a little back. I actually think that until the 80th minute, I'm very happy with those 80 minutes, give or take. We looked very solid defensively. I think we gave the goal away, which is like a cross, a deflected shot. And then, of course, I know they hit the post, but I think it looks more dangerous than it is. That's what we gave away until the 80th minute. But I think we created 2 goals and otherwise very good... we created 2 goals and other very good dangerous situations and chances. So very happy with that. We needed a little bit of surviving and a couple of good saves from Vicario. But for one man in particular, let's be honest, it was a day he's been waiting for and also training for. A fairy tale ending, as it were. See what I did there? Because when Tottenham travelled to Norway this week, obviously to toil in Bode, Matisse Tell did some toiling of his own. He was back at Hotspur Way, working away. He would have channeled any frustration he had at being left out of the Champions League squad into working with the coaches that stayed with him there, just to kind of keep improving himself and prepare himself. He presumably was kind of given some warning he may be starting in this game. And he's worked incredibly hard. I do feel like people forget Tell's age. I just think they do. I think there's this kind of writing off of him when he was a teenager for the first almost 5 months of this year. 4 or 5 months. He only turned 20 at the end of April. He is young. I mean, he'll join up with the France under-21s next week if the numerous knocks he took in the game actually don't rule him out of it. He's still learning his trade. There's kind of almost this feeling that the likes of Bergvall and Gray and all that we accept, they're going to learn, they're going to get better and better and better. But when it comes to, Matisse Tell, it's almost like, who's an old man who should know better? He's not. He is just a few, whatever it is, a little bit older than them. 9 months older than them, something like that, maybe 10 months. He's really not that older player at all. I felt this was probably his most encouraging performance as a striker. He ran, he pressed, he harried, he linked up play, and he scored a goal. Like I say, this kind of classic strikers run and early finish. Again, unfortunate to see that header hit the crossbar as well. At first I thought the keeper got a touch, but I think it just hit the bar. He played a great ball as well, actually, into the run of Chavy, who should have done far better with it, but we'll talk about him in a little bit too. I asked Thomas Frank about him afterwards, and he admitted he got a little bit emotional. I think it was after the game he kind of felt it most. He said, almost emotional about him, so happy for him. I think the character he's shown for a young man just really impressed me from day one. Of course, after a setback, not being in the Champions League squad, not being an established player, maybe playing a good position where I can really see him playing, I think he's taking steps. Also being picked a little bit for the left. He keeps training well. He trains well every day. And he actually trained 2 members of the coaching staff as well for working with him. He said, Matisse stayed at home when we went to Burda with the team. He trained well, just getting ready for today. Big praise to Cameron, that's Campbell, the individual skills coach, and Justin Cockrell, who works with the attack, for their work with him. The way we worked with him, from a fine game against West Ham as a striker to a better game against Doncaster, where he arrived more in the right areas because we trained and showed him clips, to the next level today, where I think he worked hard, he scored a good goal, he had other good situations, so I'm very, very pleased with him. Because I guess this was potentially a final test for him, really, because if he had faltered, you've got Dominic Solanke should be hoping to be back not long after the international break. Randall Kolo-Muani, we spoke about earlier, his dead leg is risen from the grave, and he's working on his fitness after that very kind of interrupted start to life at the club. You've got Richarlison to throw into the mix as well. And Tell's going to have his work cut out. So he needed a performance like this just to go like, hello, I can do this kind of thing. And I thought that was really important. Thomas Frank greenlit his move to Spurs as well. Not because he just thought, I'll go on there. And he did it because he thought, this is a guy. And he said it himself in the interview straight after. And he said that to me. I think I asked him out on the tour maybe about him. He said he's a guy that he believes has a hell of a lot of talent and he can nurture and develop it as well. I do feel, again, that people forget he was one of Europe's top young talents when Bayern brought him to them. Where was he at? Was it Rennes? I'm trying to remember now. But certainly, he was a player that everyone had high hopes for. And just because he slightly faltered a bit doesn't mean those hopes aren't there. All young players will have a little stage where they just aren't quite surging up the levels that you think they're going to. It's going to happen to all of them. And yeah, this was, for me, his best Spurs performance so far. And I do think the ability for him to play on the left as well, and sometimes on the right as well, I think it's going to give him opportunities in the months ahead, even with the European exclusion, because there will be injuries. There will be blood. This is Tottenham after all. Of course there's going to be injuries. I've listened to it on the way back, actually. The Mohamed Kudus interview. It's really nice stuff about Matisse telling it as well. I didn't have a chance to transcribe it. I'm going to put it in all my stuff for tomorrow, but have a little listen. It's good. It's really nice the way he talks about him. And I think the relief when he scored was not just for Tell. I think his teammates just really felt good. And so did Thomas Frank and the coaching staff as well. And I'd hope that he dispelled some of the doubts from the supporters as well, that he can do the job. Just got to keep working hard and learning. He's a young man. And he was part of an attack that I felt finally didn't look like a group of strangers thrust together onto a football pitch, because Thomas Frank has constantly stated that the attacking part was going to probably be the bit that took a little bit longer to gel. As most coaches say, I've got a funny feeling that's exactly what Ange Postecoglou said in his first season. And with Thomas Frank, it's about the the key playmaking components of Xavi Simons and Mohamed Kudus, because they're 2 new players thrust in there, and they are your key playmakers in this side at the moment. And I guess that's why his choice of this kind of front 4 that he had today against Leeds, it might surprise some people. There's actually a logic behind it if you kind of unpeel the layers of it, because you've got Chavy and Wilson-Odobert know each other from PSG Academy days. Tell and Odobert obviously know each other for years, the French youth system, under 21s now. Kudus knows people just, I guess, from having a proper pre-season with everyone. But I just felt like there were a few positives for all of them in their link-up play, even if only Tell and Kudus had the kind of things to show for it. For me, and I know some people disagree with me. I put this on Twitter, and a few people, shock horror, disagreed with me. You never get people disagreeing on Twitter. It's strange. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but I felt that it was one of Wilson Odebear's, if not his best performance in a Spurs shirt. I thought a lot of the things he tried worked. And what was key for me, because it's always my bugbear about him, a lot of the weakness on the ball that I've seen in him in other performances, I didn't feel he had too much of that this time. There's a couple of times he get knocked off the ball, but a lot of the time I actually felt it was quite strong. There was one moment, I can't remember what it led to, but in the centre of the pitch, he showed real strength to keep the ball, and he ended up on the right side of the pitch with it. Anyone who might remember, please do let me know. I feel like it did kind of lead to something. But yeah, he was having that strength in his play allowed him to then build the foundations to start creating and do some good stuff with it. He played a great ball. That was it. I don't think it was that one, but it was a previous one. He played the ball to Destiny Udogie that led to the Kudus shot over. That was a lovely ball at the top. He played the cross for Tell to head against the crossbar. Played a terrific ball into Chavy's path in the second half as well, and was tracking back on quite a few occasions. I do wonder whether sometimes when people just say, "Oh, he was anonymous, he was a rubbish again," it can't be anonymous. I've just listed about 4 or 5 important things in the game that he was involved in. But I just feel, and I'll be honest, I'm probably one of his biggest critics, but I've been waiting to see something from him. I can see there's a talent, but I kind of felt it was a bit of a lightweight talent. And this, for me, was the first time in a battling game I thought, okay, fair play. He's gone in there, in the elements, tough conditions, against a physical tough side, and he's gone in there and he's pretty much done most of the job. He's unfortunate. On another day, he probably has a couple of assists. Yeah, and I... On the tracking back, actually, there's a few times I saw Thomas Frank applauding him. So I think that's a good performance. And Thomas Frank, I've said this before, and people kind of laughed when I said it before. Thomas Frank really likes Wilson Odebear. And he does. And I think it's in moments like this, he sees the balance that he can bring to the attack. I thought he was good. I did think he was good. I always like to give credit where it's due, especially if it's someone that I've kind of been a bit critical of in the past. I think that's really important to balance it up and not just constantly look for reasons to slate them and all that sort of stuff. With Chavy, we saw him unleashed in the number 10 role that we've all kind of been calling for him to be in. If I'm going to be utterly honest, I would say this was a performance that was a bit more bark than bite. I would actually say Odebear probably had more of a threat with the ball. But what I did feel like, you just kind of, it did show the threat he could bring. I think I've said this before, similar to Maddison, how he can twist and turn away from a player in the middle of the pitch. And when he does that, it opens everything up. It stuffs man marking, it stuffs pressing. If you've got someone that can just go whoop and turn around and get away from them. There were a few moments when the pace of the Premier League caught him by surprise, and he took just a touch too long on the ball, didn't release the ball when he should have. But that's exactly what we spoke about him earlier. Lucas Bergvall was doing in his early games as well. He was doing it in training sessions, I know, at Hotspur Way. It was kind of quite frustrating for people in those sessions at times, including other players, because he would take too long to release the ball and he would get himself tackled. And that is what happens when you come at first to the Premier League from other leagues, where you just get that little split second. It's not even a second, it's like a nanosecond. In the Premier League, you don't even have that. Just crunch, they'll come in. And I feel like Bergvall learned quickly, and so will Chavy. I know, again, a young player, he's only 22, he will learn. There was that one moment when he was sent away by Tell in the second half. He had this great opportunity. He kind of turned inside, 2 players to his left. I cannot remember who they were. Presumably one would have been Odebear. I cannot remember who the other one was. Maybe Kudus kept track. I can't remember. I would just be guessing. But ultimately, didn't play it to them, or he tried to play it, but he tried to do something fancy. I'm trying to remember what it was. Was it like a Rabona? It was a weird attempted thing. It was the wrong time to showboat, and it just fluffed it and it went straight to defender. It could have been a big break there, but it didn't take advantage of it. I asked Thomas Frank after about, I said, can you see the little green shoots of the attacking kind of players gelling now and getting to know each other's game? And he said, yeah, I think it looked promising today at times. I like Chavy as a 10. I think that was his best game for us. See, me and Thomas Frank kind of. Well, I don't know. Am I disagreeing? Maybe. I suppose it's the most. He'll have got a great experience from it. Same with Odegaard, playing in this really tough conditions. And obviously Odegaard's had experience of this playing at Burnley, but this for me was for Chavy. It's probably it's yeah. I guess it was a good experience. Would it say it's his best? I'm trying to remember his other performances now. I don't think I'd say it's his best, but Thomas Frank is looking for different KPIs, key performance indicators, probably than I am. And he said, I think that was his best game for us. There's still more to come, but I think he had some really good actions in there. Mo, again, getting his goal, which I'm pleased with. It was about time he scored that goal, but no, I'm so pleased for him. You could just see he looked a little bit more fluid in his play, which is true. I felt he did look like, I can go anywhere with this ball. And actually, to be fair to Chavy, he kind of had this free roll at times as well. But with Kudus, my goodness, Gabriel Goodmanson will be having nightmares, not even just tonight. I would say for most of the international break, he'll be like, Kudus! He'll be like waking up like that. No! Because he just didn't know what to do with him. He was running him ragged. He came off after 79 minutes. He's probably like dizzy as he went off. Because when he thought Kudus would go on the outside, he would cut inside and run infield. And when he kind of started to come in a bit, thinking he was going to go inside, Kudus would knock it down the flank and run down there. His pass to Tell, the assist was perfect. His shot, like I said, looked like it was going in without the deflection, which probably only slowed it. Could have had 2 goals and an assist had he been a bit more composed, I guess, with this shot that after a doggy knocked the ball his way. I also found the tactical positioning of the front four fascinating because they were at different points in completely different positions. So there was times when Chavy was playing right up alongside Tell as a support striker, and there were other times when he was straight back as part of a midfield 3. And occasionally you'd be kind of the 10 in a 4-2-3-1. It was really interesting. He was, like I said, it was almost a free role. But then there was other moments when they had goal kicks. I don't know if you noticed this, but Odegaard and Kudus were pushed right up the pitch. Tell and Xavi would come back quite deep, and these 2 wingers would be like way, way up there. And I think the plan was to kind of aim it towards Kudus because he's got this great strength. He's a bit like Freddie Canute Velcro chest in that you can knock it. He might not get up as to head it, but if he gets it on his chest, he's going to hold off the guy behind him. And then he can flick it to Odegaard. And I think that was the idea. And I just thought it was really interesting the way they do that. And I guess this is all part of Thomas Frank, as he keeps telling us, getting to know his players. And I guess once he gets to know them, it allows him to start experimenting and using their skill sets and with different tactics and be able to switch in games to different things. And Spurs will be all the more unpredictable and dangerous for it. That they will. And of course, they've still got some big guns to come back into the mix. The Solankis, Kalimwanis, Kulusevski, eventually Maddison, if he comes back. Hopefully he does. I thought the attack, there was I'm not saying it was an incredible chances galore kind of performance, but there were a lot of performance, and I think he actually referred to, I don't think I've got the quotes written down here, but he said something, Thomas Frank, along the lines of, you can look at the XG for this game and it won't tell you the hidden data of the amount of times Spurs got into great positions on the edge of the box, like the Chavy fluffed pass and things like that, where they just in the final moment, or a ball flashed across the 6-yard box, those little moments where they maybe, just a little bit more composure, and it could have been a heavier scoreline. But no, I thought the attack was some little promising stuff about it. I did. Flipping to the other side of the pitch, I think just one of the key ingredients for a game like this that was different to the midweek match in Buda was Christian Romero. I just think Spurs have no direct alternative to him. His aggression, his taking the initiative, of course the captain, but on a day when there is swirling wind and rain, there was one point it was like a monsoon came down, but he was still leading the way, and Leeds obviously battering around striker and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I think he just didn't make it an easy day for any of their attackers, and nobody for me plays those quick, progressive, fast passes between the lines like Romero does. He hammers it, and in doing so, he takes 2 players mostly out of the game. A bit like the Chavy Maddison terms I was talking about in the pirouettes. a Romero pass can be equally effective in just finding a player in a little bit of space. He's so good at it. Took a lot of whacks as well today. I'd rather he does that before an international break, if I'm completely selfishly honest. But yeah, he took a fair few kicks to the shin and the foot, and he was playing with a big old bruised foot as well that kept him out of the game in Norway. He does occasionally get ahead of himself and his teammates, who are kind of in his dust behind him, when he wanders up the pitch and just decides, yeah, I'm going to camp out here for a while. There was one moment in the first half where he did leave the team a bit exposed. Bentancur knows as soon as he does this, he's like, I've got to go back into defence. And I think Spurs bench kind of let him get away with that, but they were not letting him get away with one. I think it was about the 94th minute, and I think it was only 5 minutes of added time, when he just kind of went, like ran out pressing from, I can't remember, a cleared corner or something, and he's just running, and he's almost getting to the halfway line. And I looked down at the bench because I'm thinking, they are not going to take this. And yeah, Thomas Frank was yelling at him and going, get back. And the coaching staff were all up there pointing back to the box, because that was the moment when Leeds were like throwing everything into the box, everything with the kitchen sink. And for Romero to be up near Richarlison on the halfway line was not the place you really want him to be, even though they'd switched to a back three. Just because it's a back three, Christian, doesn't say it's time you can go out and be a striker, especially in the 94th minute of a game you're trying to keep the 2-1 win. Actually, to be fair to Mickey van der Ven, there's no real alternative to him either. Just no one in the team has that kind of pace that he has, the ability to mop up behind the back line. And I mean, I guess when you look at it now in training in Hotspur Way, they've got a lot of centre-backs suddenly, but very different ones. So you've got Romero, you've got Van der Ven, you've got Kevin Danso, you've got Radu Dragusin in training, you've got Kota Takai in training, Ben Davies as well, if you want to put him in there. But Romero and Van der Ven are key, and it's the blend, the best blend. And one of the local journalists, wasn't even a question, he kind of just stated to Frank that they might just be the best centre-back pairing in terms of a blend in the Premier League. And Thomas Frank went, thank you. I think the two there are very important. Of course, the whole team is always important, the back four and all that, but I agree with you. You have the right pairing in the middle, it brings you a long way. So I think it's big credit to the two of them. I think it's a big credit to the performance and medical staff. They've done a very good job there, and they're in a very good place, both of them right now, in terms of fitness. And especially, I'll praise the medical and performance staff for a short turnaround with Kuti. He got a big bruised foot from Wolves to this, but he got around and he managed to play through the pain in the end. So it also showed character and mentality. And I think when you talk about character and mentality, I think you have to also speak about Guillermo Vicario. Spurs have not conceded that many goals this season, but whenever they have, everyone kind of goes, Vicario, it's Vicario. And look, occasionally I absolutely agree that he brings that upon himself, like that early free kick when he's just rushing out like a headless chicken. I don't know where he was going. He needed a GPS because he was heading in the wrong direction. And yeah, occasionally his kicking is a little bit iffy because they ask him to do more than maybe he's comfortable with his feet. But I do feel with the goal, I've watched it a few times, I do think he's a bit harsh to kind of pin it all on him. He is making a reaction save behind the two players, Spurs players. The ball comes through, it's deflected as well, so he has to react to a late change in it when he does eventually see it. And his handling's a bit funny, kind of pushes it down onto himself, but ultimately he kind of does push it. It's not like he pushes it straight forward, he is pushing it a bit away. I would say a doggy wasn't switched on as well. I thought it was a bit harsh to kind of pin that on him too much when it's a reaction save. But what's the main thing I think is so key to Vicario is the kind of ability not to wallow. He doesn't wallow. We saw that when he had that bad injury, and if anyone watched the little documentary Spurs did on him, which was really good, he's such a strong character. And ultimately, he was as crucial to Spurs winning this game as Tell and Kudus were. I had my ratings all set to give him a meh rating. And by the end, I think I gave him a 7 because what he did in the second half balanced out so much of anything you could kind of criticise him for. He was crucial. Made that good save from Calvert-Lewin with his foot, and then he made that really excellent save from Pirro late on. And I asked Thomas Frank kind of, it was a bit of an awkwardly, clumsily, clunkily asked question, but the whole point was about the two big saves at the end, especially the one right at the end, but also when many people probably were looking at him at being partially at fault for the goal. And he said, I agree, as in they were crucial. 2 big saves. I think the one with the left hand was the biggest one. Very, very good and big saves. The goal, I looked back at it. I think I need to look a little bit more calmly in it. But of course, you can say, can we put the ball in another place, parry it out? And Dest, as he calls him, could be more aware. I also think it drops. There's a deflection. There's a few bits we could have done better with there. So I don't think it's a massive mistake, if that makes sense. But I would rather want to praise the 2 big saves. And that's what I think. I agree. I think in the end, he did the job in helping Spurs get the win. And I think he deserves the credit for that. Yeah. Ultimately, Spurs got the job done, didn't they, really? There was even time at the end for Archie Gray, who didn't come on to say his proper goodbyes to the Ellen Road crowd all these months on. Earlier in the game, he'd been down the touchline with the Spurs subs, and the Leeds fans sang "You're Leeds and you know you are." And he kind of just smiled and he jogged off. And Ben Davies looked kind of slightly annoyed with him, as if to say, you should have acknowledged that, like kind of a little clap or something. And when he jogged off, he because they're good friends, aren't they, 2 of them? He kind of just shrugged his shoulders and said, what else can I say, kind of thing. And I think he was right, Ben Davies. I don't think as Spurs fans would have been upset to see him clap his boyhood club's fans that loved him kind of coming through, and part of the Gray family obviously have got a great connection to Leeds as well. I don't think any Spurs fans going to hold that against him. Maybe that was what he thought. But actually the Spurs fans did sing a song back to the Leeds fans about why he left them, which I can't repeat. But there was a nice moment at the end of the game regardless. He did a little walk around the pitch, this little lap of applause. And even though they were disappointed at the results, the Leeds fans gave him a really good ovation and a send-off. Obviously, he hasn't been able to get back there, I guess, unless, I don't know whether he's gone back to watch his brother Harry play at all, but still, this was the proper official time to be back. It was a shame, really, that he didn't get to come on, but I kind of understood late in the game. I know he came on and he's come in some big games late on, but maybe this time he just felt the balance was right and didn't need to change it. But yeah, it's been a promising start for Spurs. It really has. When you look at it overall, this is the thing. We can definitely have some little gripes about some of the performances and the way they've come about, but ultimately, 1 defeat from all of those, and to be third, 2 points off the top. Here we are going into the October international break. It's not a bad start at all. And he was asked about it, Thomas Frank, and he said, 14 points in 7 games is 2 on average. That's very good. So that overall start I'm happy with. I'm extremely happy that now on the road we've won 3 and a draw, which I think that's part of it. I think Spurs have got the best away record, haven't they? If you want to achieve anything, you need to do that. So overall a good start, but we need to continue, of course. And of course, home form, that needs to improve. But this was an important win because I think, 3 draws in a row, wasn't it? They needed to just get back into winning ways. You could say unbeaten since, unbeaten between the 2 international breaks, which we know hasn't happened for a long time because they always lose before the next one. But yeah, it feels like, I'm going to keep using this expression because I think it's true, that the Thomas Frank building blocks being put into place like little bits of Lego. Hopefully stronger than Lego, although painful on the feet when you stand on them. And now it's just about constructing what comes on top of that, on those firm foundations. Because if he can sort out the defence, and this is kind of what Poch did really back in the day, wasn't it? The defence became really good. I think Spurs had the best defence in terms of fewest goals conceded for 2 of his peak seasons, and the third one, I think they were second or joint top. And that's what he did. He built on it, and he built. And that's, if Thomas Frank can do that, then he can get somewhere. So hopefully that comes. But yeah, I thought a really promising first segment to his tenure as Tottenham manager, but plenty more to do, of course, and plenty more going forward. But let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'm interested to see what people make of it, really. Just a short one today, really, in terms of overall kind of lengths of these videos, because I felt that was it, really. I felt there wasn't like loads of avenues to keep going down. It was just a good professional performance and some nice little elements to it that we could drill into. Next one, I'll do something certainly later this week or at the weekend. I am heading to the 2 NFL games, so people know I like my NFL. I'm going to head down. I'm always fascinated to see how the stadium handles it and what they tweak and change with each passing one. So yeah, I am heading to the one tomorrow and then next weekend as well. Was it the Vikings and the Browns tomorrow? So yeah, if anyone's interested, I might mention little things that happen around the stadium. Don't worry, I won't go into the NFL too much because I know some people really don't like that. But I'll also probably do a lone roundup in the next one, and maybe if you want to get questions in the comments, if you want to do that as well, we could do a little Q&A on what's to come. There's plenty of little stuff, isn't there? The takeover stuff. We had that Firehawk in the last couple of days announced that they weren't going to make a bid. That was the Asia-based consortium. That's them and PCP are now out of the running. They decided to just wait and see what the Brooklyn, Eric, and the US consortium do. I think they've got till the 24th of October. So, yeah, if you want questions about that, you want any questions about the players, we can have a good old chat, an international break chat, which will be a bit happier this time. Hooray! How wonderful. Right, I'm going to head off. Still got plenty of bits and pieces I need to do. But hopefully this should go out maybe late this evening rather than a morning one. But you may be watching this in the morning anyway. Who knows? It's weird to do it in a shirt. You know I've come from a worky type thing. Right, time to head off. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your international break. And yeah, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.